A few months ago, I tested a prototype of a micro kiln from Anderson Biomass Systems. And the day that Phil came down here to pick that prototype up and take it back, I told him that day I wanted one. So I put in my order, and today he was back to deliver my custom-built micro firewood kiln. So I'm going to show you guys the kiln and go over some of the features of it and then kind of show you how it's built. Now this one is custom built for my specs that I wanted in order to be able to do the mini firewood. So the size of this is what his kilns will be, the smallest version of them, but they will not be, the inside will be a little bit different. And I'll explain when I show you. But this thing turned out great. When he pulled in today and I got to look at this and how it all, I mean, this is going to fit my needs perfectly. And I'm going to explain in a little while, when I get talking more about this, why a kiln like this, or maybe one a little bit bigger from Anderson Biomass Systems, might just be exactly what you need as a firewood hobbyist or professional hobbyist, or even a professional firewood producer. Because I think one thing that gets lost in all of this conversation around kilns is you have this misconception about them. And I'm going to cover that, like I said, in a little bit. But let's take a closer look at the Anderson Biomass Systems micro kiln. So there is the kiln. This one, like I mentioned earlier, I had this custom built to have these two baskets in it. The actual production model of this, for this size, will come with, so this compartment will just be one basket. But yeah, there'll just be one compartment for putting firewood in. So we have the stove, the wood stove down here on the bottom, just like the prototype. You got the fire down there. We got the thermometer, the temperature gauge right there, and that is actually reading from the bottom. So there will be, I think Phil said there was, when he did his test run of this, he had from the bottom to the top back corner a 5-degree difference in temperature. And then we got the chimney on the back. So if you remember the prototype, this was inside and coming out the top. So now the chimney is actually outside of the firebox or the drying chamber, and this gives you a little bit more room in there. The other thing with this, this model of the kiln is that it does fit on a pallet for shipping. So you can get this shipped right to you. That's one of the things, that the footprint of it is the size of a standard shipping pallet. So it's got the door here on the side. That's one thing that was different than the prototype. If you remember, the prototype had the basket on the front that pulled out the front. So we changed that design around. Now loads from the side. It's got way more capacity for drying and heat treating. And that is like the main, I guess, design and function behind this micro kiln, is mostly for the heat treatment process. Yes, it can be used for drying, kiln drying firewood, but if you had seasoned, semi-seasoned firewood ready to go, and you could put it in here and heat treat it in a couple hours. Well, I'm going to do a test to see how long it takes this afternoon here. I'm going to do a test run. I got the temperature probes ready to go. We're going to throw some wood in there. We're going to fire it up and test it out. Now all of this wood is already seasoned and dry. It just needs to be heat treated. So it does not need to be kiln dried. So all we're doing today with this test is we are going to try to get the core temperature of this wood up to 140 degrees, and we're going to hold it for an hour. So now that we're all loaded up, it's just time to start the fire. The one difference between this and the prototype, if you remember, the prototype had a blower on it that would kind of like cool things off inside the chamber, the drying chamber, if the fire and the temperature got too hot. This does not have that, so there is no need for electricity. The way to control your temperature is just through the damper on the stove here, and you can open up the vent on the drying chamber if need be, if things get too hot. So I've got the probes in. Our starting temp, it's a little chilly today, so the core temps of the 4 pieces of wood are at 55, 54, 56, 52. And I also have that then going to one of my phones over here so that this will record every minute the temperature changes. And then it will output a spreadsheet of the entire run. So while I'm waiting, I just thought I would quick touch on what I kind of mentioned earlier about sometimes the misconception and what's perceived as not really being practical. In this case, like a smaller kiln like this for somebody who maybe is just doing firewood on the side or like a hobby. So one of the things to think about is that if when you think of a kiln, you think of like a big shipping container, great big box that you put, 3, 4, 5 full cords of wood in. But do you really need to heat treat or dry that much wood at one time if you are a small supplier? Like if you only have, say, a small account, or like a couple accounts, say a gas station and maybe a campground or like a grocery store, and you wanted to start supplying them with like heat treated bundles, kiln dried bundles, or kiln dried cooking wood, smaller amounts. What you could do, so yeah, you can't fit a whole IBC tote in this size kiln, but if it only takes you 3 to 4 hours to heat treat, say, I think he said that he figured it was like 10 cubic feet inside that chamber. If you could do 10 cubic feet of wood, so let's say 10 bundles every day, you went out to your wood yard in 3 to 4 hours. If you did that 3-4 times a week, how many bundles would you have at the end of the week? So yes, you do have to run this more, but I think it's more practical for smaller firewood operations to have something like this compared to a $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 kiln that you can put 4 full cords of wood in. Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts and kind of the reason why this not only fits in perfect for me in my mini firewood operation, but even if I was just doing like bundles or like I said, smaller restaurant orders, every day I'm out here after work anyway for a couple hours, putzing around. Some days I'm, not really doing too much. I'm just out here just to be out here because this is the place I like to hang out at the end of the day after I'm done with my day of work. So if I'm doing that, if I'm out here anyway, and I can each day, like I said, get 10 bundles done, I don't know, to me that makes more sense than spending a lot of money on a great big kiln to then have to try to always fill that thing, and maybe I only run it once a month. So let's check in quick. We have come up in our core temp to, we're in the 60s, mid 60s. So the core temp of the wood is rising, and this will be a bit of a learning curve for me because like I said, it doesn't have that blower on it to, be able to just walk away and let it run and cool down. But I think once I get a good fire established and it's dampered down, and we'll be set. We have passed the 140 mark on our last probe. There's one in there that's, I think, down in the lower corner in the front that just went over 140. The other one on the top there, that one, you can see one's up there at 170. So we have crossed over the 140 mark. So now we just have to let this run for another hour. So it took an hour and a half to get up to the 140 core temp on that last probe. So now, like I said, we have to let this go for, got to maintain the 140 for another hour. So all in all, this total process to heat treat those 2 baskets of mini firewood will take me right around 2.5 to 3 hours. So I will have the link down in the description to Anderson Biomass Systems Facebook page. That is the best place to get a hold of Phil or get more information and just check out what he's got posted over there on his kilns. Like I said, this is the first one. It was custom built, different than what he is going to be offering for his production models. But yeah, this thing, and I only put in, oh, the other thing I should mention is I only added wood twice. These chunks are about the size of wood that I added. I added 2 chunks twice. So it is now the next day after doing my first test run in the Anderson Biomass Systems micro kiln. And I mentioned earlier in this video that this first run was going to be a learning experience, and it definitely was. I learned many things. Number 1, I don't need as big of a fire as I had. I don't need the temperature as hot as I had it. And yeah, I may have turned some mini firewood into mini charcoal briquettes. So the first run was a success. It just was, like I said, it's part of this learning curve. So yesterday I was running the temp a little too hot, I think. So today I did another just run for a couple hours, and I had the probes in there once again in different spots. And I found that I don't need the temperature as hot as I had it. So that is a good thing. And the other thing is, surprisingly, it's using very little scrap wood. Like, I've been saving up all this limb wood and all these scraps thinking that I was going to be burning through a whole bunch of wood. And today in this test run I just did, like, I barely used any wood, and it was all just small scraps. I had just a small fire and I was able to maintain the temp I wanted. But yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, gonna keep doing some more testing. Got a few, it's gonna take a couple runs to really get things dialed in and get the whole process down packed, so where I know exactly, what temp I need the fire to be, the temps I need the probes inside, all that stuff. So first run was a success. Just there were a few things that didn't go quite as planned. And again, just because I was, I wasn't sure how hot to maintain the temperature once I reached that 140. And I had it a little too hot. Like I said, I might have some mini charcoal briquettes if anyone wants any. So again, the link is down in the description for Anderson Biomass Systems. Head on over there, check them out if you have any questions. Otherwise, if you're interested, let Phil know. And thanks for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow night on the Back 40 Friday Night live stream.
I've been a real bad boy on the town all night. Starting to